Hello, doctor.
How you doing?
Good. How are you today?
I'm good.
So today I'm going to be interviewing on a series of questions regarding the discourse community and over the Rhine. Before we start, do I have your consent to use this recording? Uh, okay. And then do I also have uh, consent to use you in my research paper, or would you rather remain anonymous?
Oh, you can just fine. It's good.
All right. Sounds great. All right. So my first question for you today is, what is the overall reaction to this gentrification by the citizens of Over the Rhine?
Overall reaction, I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard to say. I think it depends on what segment of the society you're talking about. If you're talking about middle class, non-African Americans and white Americans who own businesses, it's fine, I suppose.
Okay.
If you're
And
if
then for the other segment, I'm assuming that yes.
if you're talking so different socioeconomic folks who are not middle class, African Americans, Latinos, poor people in general, obviously it's an encroachment on their living environment. It has transformed their lives in a way that they never anticipated. Um, and in some ways has brought more economic and political and psychological trauma than people expect.
Okay. Thank you. And then my second question is, what are some methods of communication citizens and Over the Rhine use to reach out to each other in
Uh,
these gentrified areas?
oh, they just talk to each other on street corners. I mean, the regular kind of stuff. It's they just see people in the street and talk about it. They visit folks' houses. Obviously telephones. I don't think too much goes on internet wise, but I'm not sure. Maybe the more I'm not want to use more economic more economically savvy folks may use the internet. So that's not necessarily their most important mode of communication. It's usually seeing people in the community that's still there, or people who are relatively left the community. They just have one-on-one conversations or group conversations.
Thank you. And then the next question is, do you know any specific goals that Over the Rhine citizens want to achieve as a result of this gentrification?
Just to maintain their community, maintain their family structure, maintain their history, maintain their lives.
Beautiful. And then what settings does discourse between citizens take place at? You said obviously the street.
Uh-huh.
Is there any other places other than that where they meet?
Well, the community centers normally, there's several community centers. I think the city at one time or another, but I haven't been to a city council meeting in forever or listening to one. So I think at one point city council had these community focus meetings in Over the Rhine. I just can't remember specifically if they're still going on because of COVID, and have they went to an online kind of virtual reality. But the city council at some point had these open forums.
Beautiful. And then do you know how citizens get out the overall message to the public to gather involvement regarding this gentrification?
Oh, they organize their like there's the community councils, local clubs, churches, etc. It's just social institutions that they have. And sometimes they just talk about it and have flyers posted on post or in community areas. Just have flyers they hand out to people too.
Beautiful. So I was there last week,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of the stuff that you're saying reaffirms my observations. There's a lot of artwork regarding about displacement of housing.
Yep.
I went into the less gentrified area of Over the Rhine, and I saw a lot of graffiti on stores that said, "Stop gentrifying our areas," and asking why that we're destroying it and stuff like that. So,
Well, I
yeah, you
think
can see a clear difference between the lines.
I think one of the non-starter questions that folks don't want to ask is, even with the gentrification of the perceived positive impact of gentrification and Over the Rhine, how many of those businesses there are owned by people of color or women? And how many people in the neighborhood actually own those businesses? That's the underlining question that nobody wants to answer, because if they do ask those questions, it's almost zero.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all I have today, but I really appreciate taking your time out of the busy schedule that you have. And yeah, thank you very much.
No problem. So what is it? Tell me about your paper. What is it, for a class or is it for what?
So it is for a college composition class that I am taking, and my paper is kind of adding on to previous research, which has gone on already. So it's either reaffirming what previous research has discovered, or there may be some backlash to that research that has been explored as well. So yeah, there's a lot of diversity in the Over the Rhine area now, especially with all the gentrification.
Mhm.
And I read statistics that I think more middle class people are starting to move into the area.
Mhm.
So that's why a lot of the original citizens were upset with a lot of the stores going up, because they can't afford
Yep.
to go to the stores, and they can't even afford rent in that area either.
Well, the tricky part from a historical basis is after the 2001 urban upheaval and riot, and as people call it, I call it the urban upheaval in 2001. This supposed nonprofit group called 3CDC came in and started to take over what they defined as blighted buildings, but they defined blight in a weird kind of way. So, and they're supposed to be nonprofit, 3CDC. So if you do some research on 3CDC, I don't know how much research time you have. Just look at how much money they generated for a nonprofit. So that
Okay.
and it's kind of tricky because it was connected to the mayor's, Charlie Lucan's, kind of offshoot back in the early 2000s. But again, nobody wants to talk about any of that stuff because that's where it started.
Yeah. I was talking to the citizens about 3CDC and their opinion of them. They're just trying to save face, basically, is what they're doing.
Yep.
They said they didn't like when they redid Washington Park.
Yep.
And I think they're trying to collab with 3CDC right now to, are you aware of Imagination Alley?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
With that as well. So we'll see how that goes. But
Yeah. There's a
yeah,
lot.
the overall
There's a lot of shadiness going on, and people don't understand because they're not able to get into the power brokers. I mean, it's just, I mean, in a way, gentrification can be good. It's just you have to engage. This is just a sidebar. You have to engage people in the neighborhood as you're doing this. You can't just just push them out the way like they don't belong and take their land, which is basically what's going on.
Yeah, it's also very visible to see that as well. So it's not history or anything. It's like blatantly obvious as soon as you cross one specific street that you can tell.
Yep.
And yeah,
it's sad.
it is sad.
It's sad, but it's not sad for other folks who are generating revenue, and it's not sad for other folks who are making a whole lot of money, and they don't want to layer gentrification with any kind of negative connotation, be it race or socioeconomic status or anything. They don't want to layer it with any of that stuff. It's always presented as a good thing, because what are we going to do with these blighted communities and buildings anyway?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, 3CDC it's been a long nemesis of mine because as soon as I start digging through there, how they were created, how they start taking over those buildings as a quote nonprofit. I'm like, really? Nonprofit? Since when?
Yeah. So what I read about nonprofits is obviously the people at the top, the CEOs, the suits, can all generate revenue from that, even though they call themselves nonprofits, which is what the fishy part really is.
Yep.
So,
Well,
um,
let me know if I can help you even further. And it was good talking to you. Every now and then I come down to Over the Rhine, but not normally. I'm into historical preservation now, trying to figure out how to preserve parts of Over the Rhine, the West End, particularly African American stuff in the West End and Over the Rhine, because people don't understand African Americans were in Over the Rhine since World War One. They have no idea that African Americans and Appalachian folks were in Over the Rhine since World War One.
yeah. And I was reading in your article that the Germans were flushed out of there because of anti-German propaganda. So
Yep.
they left pretty quick.
Yep.
And then you said specifically that it was a favorite for Southern African Americans to come and settle in.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
day.
you for your time. It said I needed your permission to record, but it wouldn't let me record. So do you mind if you could email this recording over to me?
Yep. No
All
problem.
right. Sounds great. You've been a huge help, and thank you for taking your part of your day just to help me out on this project. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. See ya.
You too. Bye.